Before I get to your calls, I have a couple guests with me today. I have in studio for Manhood Hour, I have Beny, right?
Beny Ashburn.
Beny and Teo.
Teo Hunter. What's going
Teo
on?
Hunter.
Good
Thank
morning.
you guys for coming in.
Of course.
They are local business owners and founder of Crown and Hopes.
Crowns and Hops.
Crowns and Hops.
Brewing Company.
And they also panelists with Gentrification Sucks. Thank you all for coming.
Of course. Thank you
So
for having us.
you guys are not married?
No,
You're not husband and wife?
we are
No, we are
not.
not.
Oh, good. You're just business partners.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I thought you were husband and wife.
Now everybody thinks that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now.
That's amazing. What made you decide to go in business together?
Well, we used to date.
Oh.
That's so funny. We actually met on Tinder 6 years ago, and Teo.
Most unsuccessful, successful Tinder story.
Pretty much. And Teo was really into craft beer. He was a very big craft beer aficionado. My background was marketing and advertising, and we realized that there was a void in the craft beer space for people of color. So we started a company to really change that.
Amazing. And so your company is here in L.A.?
Correct.
And where is it located?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're based in Inglewood, California. So,
Oh, okay.
essentially an area where it's currently being revitalized, and we wanted to make sure that we represent and have representation in terms of all cultures, all backgrounds, in an area rather that's currently just being completely changed.
Yeah.
Do you drink the beer that you make?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Oh, you do? You drink beer too?
Of course.
Really?
Of course.
I'm not accustomed to women drinking beer or drinking,
yeah.
period.
Well,
'Cause-
the thing about craft beer that I think people should really understand is craft beer is more than just drinking beer. The craft beer community, or if you go to any brewery, it's very family focused. It's very community based. It's a place where people can come together, feel safe, feel comfortable, and have a glass of beer if they so choose. It's really just about the environment.
Amazing. And so you are part of an organization called Gentrification Sucks. What is that?
We're not a part of it, but it's an organization that was founded by the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, and they simply invited us to really participate in a conversation about what it means to participate in the revitalization of your communities.
You're on a panelist about that. I
we
see.
were in a panel to discuss what it means to have a business in an area that might be targeted for gentrification or revitalization in some instances, depending on what side of the fence you sit on. But the reality is we're a part of what it means to contribute to the community, what it means to bring progressive businesses, manufacturing, and great craft beer.
And so gentrification, it means that the blacks don't want the white people to come back into the communities?
Oh, no, I don't think that at all. I think, if anything, what it means is to consider the people that are there, or to consider the incumbents. And
What do you mean consider them? What do you mean?
Well, I think when people see their culture not being represented, not being in a way included in the revitalization of a community, it makes some people feel excluded. And our philosophy is that we want to make sure that people are aware of business models like ours, which are craft beer businesses, which are businesses that traditionally show themselves in revitalizing communities. The reality is a lot of people don't understand the concept of craft beer or breweries. Traditionally in neighborhoods, there are liquor stores.
But white people love beer.
They do.
This is true.
They definitely do.
Especially in the South. I don't quite understand what he's saying. Is it that black people don't want the white people to come back?
No, I think look at it this way. Let's take Inglewood, for example. Inglewood is known to be a community that is extremely diverse. When you start to revitalize neighborhoods, what tends to happen is the culture of the community that already existed tends to get wiped away. So the fear, I think, in Inglewood is that as the city starts to redevelop and revitalize, that many of the black people and the culture of black people will be then pushed out. Because you'll have all these new businesses, all these new, people moving in that don't look like the community that has existed there for 20, 30, 50 years. So it's just a matter of being considered. So when he says being considered, if this is an area that has consisted of primarily people of color, find ways to keep that culture there while also developing the neighborhood.
So you're saying that if the white people come back, they're going to revitalize the city. What does it mean, revitalizing? If the blacks, if the whites are coming in and they're just buying property and being folks, what do you mean by revitalizing?
But real quick though, when you say come back, were they ever there?
Yeah. When I first moved to California, when I first moved to California back in 1968, Inglewood was white. And then the blacks started coming, and the whites left because of the violence and stuff like that. And they tended to turn the neighborhoods into hoods. And so they left, and now they're starting to come back into these neighborhoods. And it seems as though the blacks don't want them back. Is that true?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, East LA at one point was Jewish.
It used to be white. Yeah, you're right. It used to be Jewish, and then it became white.
That's
then
correct.
it became black, and now it's Mexican.
Right.
I stayed up all night to get a Mexican.
Well, at the end of the day, this was all Mexico at one point. but what we're talking about is...
I thought it was Indian.
Indian, Aztec. I'm sure there are many cultures here.
So I'm just trying to get a real clear understanding.
Of course.
The blacks are upset because the whites are coming back, not anyone else coming, right?
Well, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think if anything, again, when you talk about our business, which is the business of craft brewing,
right.
Out of 7,500 breweries in the country, less than 1% are owned by people of color.
Right.
And if you see that model, which is a progressive model, a model of entrepreneurship, a model of ownership, of owning what goes in your body, owning what happens in your neighborhoods, these are the things and these are the businesses that have not been exposed to communities of color. So what we're talking about...
Well, your business is going to boom with the beer business when the white come back. My wife, especially on Friday, they love beer.
Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day,
beer, boots, and dance. They love it.
we'll be a mile away from the stadium. So
that's amazing.
So just like sports, beer can be enjoyed by everybody.
So help me to understand.
Of course.
Because I'm black and a little slow. Are the blacks upset because...
You look really fast to me.
Are the blacks upset because the whites are coming? Or are they upset because the Mexicans are coming, the Japanese, the Chinese, and the whites? They don't want either of them coming.
They're upset because they feel like they're getting pushed out of the community.
By the whites?
Whoever is coming into the community.
And who is coming?
Whoever is coming in. It could be white. It could be, it could be anyone. It's the very sole purpose of pushing them out. They don't want to be pushed out.
But if
of a
they own
neighborhood
the
and
land, let's say
community.
that the blacks own the land, they bought houses and they
Right.
own the lands and not renting the land.
Right.
How can they be pushed out because they don't have to sell?
You're right. It's about ownership at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we like to always talk about are paradigms of ownership. You can't be stuck
That's
in a
right.
paradigm of being a consumer forever.
That's right, man.
That has to change. But what a lot of people also don't understand is it was public and private policy to not give loans to people of color at one point in L.A., in Inglewood. So when you think about a collateral effect of that mindset of being a renter, being a leaser, not being an owner, that starts to set in. And one of the things that we always preach are paradigms of ownership.
So you agree that they don't want any of the races back, not just the white people?
It's not. We don't agree that they don't want people there. We agree that they want to keep their culture and they want to stay in their neighborhoods. So,
But tell them to buy the land and they can stay.
Well,
This
it's
is
not-
America, so people are going to come and go.
It's to Teo's point, and really looking back in history and the paradigm of ownership. If you are not, if you don't understand what ownership is, and you don't have the resources to buy your house or be exposed to the opportunity to do that, it's not as easy as saying buy your house.
The white people gave them a chance. Remember when, before the market crash, they were letting people get loans and buy homes, even welfare people
Predatory
bought
loans?
Yeah, even welfare people. I don't know what predatory, but even welfare people bought homes with food stamps, right? And everybody, and their mama owned a home, they owned apartment buildings, but they didn't pay the bills. They didn't pay the no.
Well, you have to be able to
And so the
sustain
market crashed. So they have given them a chance already.
So one of my favorite quotes by Waldo Ralph Emerson is, "The mind stretched in a new idea can never return to its original dimensions." Meaning, if you were introduced to a paradigm that you have never been introduced before, you can't go backwards. And even though opportunities might have been made available in the past, it doesn't mean that the fundamentals were also given with those opportunities.
Oh, meaning that their parents didn't teach them to be.
But
their parents were not an example how to buy land and how to invest and how to.
Parents,
so it's the parents' fault, not the white people's fault, right?
Grandparents. What we're talking about is really information and the availability of it.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. There is a correction that needs to happen in terms of information being made available to everyone so that we can take advantage of this American dream, so that we can take advantage of entrepreneurship. But there are pillars that need to be in place in order for that to take root.
Yeah.
And what I think you're talking about in terms of the fear, in terms of people not having been able to retain their homes or retain their businesses, comes from also.
They don't pay their bills.
Hey, look, you know what? When
Black people need to pay back. They don't pay you back. You know how it is. You loan them some money, they ain't gonna pay you back.
Hey, look, I served in the military
And then they
for
hide
14
from
years,
you.
and I saw a lot of white folks that didn't pay bills too.
But you know, black don't pay back, right? Be honest. Black people ain't gonna pay you
I
back.
can't really agree with you.
No, you
'cause-
loan them money and you see them like.
But you're saying loan them as if it's a larger category. I mean, I'm black. I know plenty of people who pay their bills, so I'm not really sure.
Benny, you paid me back the other day.
I totally did.
I believe I
pay
paid you
all the
back.
time.
She better pay you back. That's your partner.
I pay you back all the
You know,
time. I pay my
Let me
college
ask you,
loans.
when I was growing up, I grew up on a plantation down in Alabama. I was born there, my
Really?
grandparents and their parents, and I grew up under the Jim Crow
I
laws.
noticed the bag.
My
the cotton
concept, I
bag.
brought it with me.
I see it.
Wow.
And but I never. We were taught from day one how to work. Our parents were good examples. Grandparents. I worked all my life. Went to school, worked, and we were taught that you finish high school, the men had to leave home. At 18, you're out of there, right?
Right.
Because you were prepared to leave home. I did at 18. And we were also taught that we should start making money, get a job, making money, buy a house at 25, get married, start a family. And so I grew up with that mentality. And at 25, I moved out here at 18 years old and got me a job. Went through a lot of hell, but got a job. And at 25, I woke up. It was my birthday. I'm like, wow, I'm 25 years old. I got to go buy a house. I had no money for a house, no down payment or anything. But it was just instilled in me to do it.
Yes.
Right.
And so I went out and introduced myself to a realtor. And she took me around. She's like, how much money do you have to put down on it? I'm like, nothing. Zero money, right? She said, all right, we'll just look and see what happens. We finally saw a house that I liked right down the street. And we found out later that the people that were selling that house, they just needed somebody to take over the loan, assume the loan. I was like, wow, that's amazing. So I took the loan over and I bought my house at 25. I have never thought that I could not. I'm not into the race thing and all that. So the way we were raised back before the Civil Rights Movement, black people were starting businesses. They went to college if they wanted to. They started families. All of my uncles and aunts moved up to Indiana, and they all bought homes. They got jobs. They didn't rely on the government. What happened that blacks became so needy and complaining and begging and whining and think that they can't when they, at one point before the Civil Rights Movement, they thought that they could, or they knew they could?
I think, again, what you're talking about is, and what we're talking about is information, and what you spoke about very specifically about your own homeowner experience.
And it was just me, it was other blacks too that I know.
Would have been a matter of opportunity. And if anybody right now in this day and age could walk into assuming someone's loan, I'm sure we probably have a lot more homeowners. But you're looking
But they
at,
don't have that mentality that you guys have. You guys started your own business. The mentality is already there.
Well, and you're also looking at a Spelman grad. You're looking at someone who attended Howard University.
Right.
And we are taking the responsibility
Right.
of teaching our community,
Good.
of teaching our neighbors, of teaching our brothers and sisters. But let's be honest. We also learned from amazing black and brown women and professors and business owners in the community as well.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is we're making sure that those lessons are not lost and that there is a roadmap, and we're being responsible for stretching the dimensions of people's understanding.
You went to Spelman?
I did.
Spelman, and you went where?
I went to Howard University.
Howard, did you know that there was a time when Howard University would not let a man of your color in?
I did not know that.
They would only let light-skinned blacks in.
Yeah.
They would not let dark-skinned blacks in.
as opposed to no blacks at all?
Right.
They wouldn't let them in. Isn't that amazing?
I think, if anything, what's amazing is we have some amazing alumni coming out right now.
Yeah, we do.
You're sitting right in front of one.
Amazing. So, so let me ask. You said black and brown. I noticed in your promo, you mentioned black and brown.
That's right.
Does brown mean Mexicans?
Brown means Latino.
Why do you guys include the browns? The browns don't like the blacks. Why do black people include them rather than just saying everybody? Whites and because when you say brown, it sounds like you're excluding the whites and you just want the Mexicans and the blacks and the Mexicans.
So
why do you just say black and brown
We
instead
say
of
black
everyone?
and brown because
Brown being the gambit pigment.
right. The black and brown, we say that very specifically because our company was really started on filling and speaking to a void that existed in the craft beer community. As you said many times, white people love beer. You see them at these breweries. You see them with their families being communal, having conversations. What you don't see are people of color in these spaces, people of color enjoying these same comfortable environments and spaces in the craft beer space. So our focus is to really represent and introduce the brown and black culture into the craft beer. So we're not excluding anyone.
But you should see how it can sound that way, right? When you say black and brown.
We can understand how it sounds that way, but I think if you go to a brewery and you look around and realize there are no people of color, there's nothing, we're not excluding anyone, we're just welcoming more to the table. And we're introducing more people to a space because they don't exist.
One other question about this gentrification deal. Black people, not all, but most, they bitch when the white people leave the neighborhoods. Like, we come in and the whites are leaving, right? And then when the white people come back, they're bitching. Help me to understand why.
I would have
They damn if they do it, they damn if they
I'm
don't.
not really sure what you're talking. I'm not
You know how the
clear.
black people complain that when they move into the white neighborhoods, the white people start moving out. They start selling their property and moving away.
I've never heard that complaint.
Yeah, I have.
I've never heard that complaint
Yeah,
either.
they have.
You know, actually, I grew up in Altadena, California.
Oh, cool. Altadena's a nice area.
Altadena's a beautiful area.
Yeah.
And it was also an area when there were a lot of people that migrated either from the South or from L.A.
Right.
They actually took spaces in the hills of Altadena, in the spaces in Altadena, and the neighborhood stayed beautiful. And you know, to I think the point you're trying to make, unfortunately, I didn't experience that. You know,
neither
going
did I.
to John Muir
So you
High
guys have
School-
never heard the blacks complain that the whites leave when they come in?
No, again, and like I was going to say, I grew up in Altadena, Pasadena, home of Jackie Robinson as well. One of the things that they just had a hall of fame to where they introduced new people into the hall of John Muir. And one of the things that everyone, white, black, female, that graduated from that school experienced was that it was one of the most diverse and interesting experiences that they ever had that armored them for the world. So very much like we noticed in the craft beer space, which wasn't diverse and didn't have an inclusional element to it, we realized that we become better armored to handle and solve and make suggestions for unity, you know, when we have diversity.
Did you grow up in California too?
I grew up in New York.
And
Harlem girl.
you've
Harlem.
never heard them complain that the white people leave when they come in?
No.
You've never heard it?
No.
We're opening the the treasure chest right now in D-Live, folks. We'll open it. Can I hold you guys just for a few minutes?
Of course.
Okay. I'm going to hold them over for a few minutes, take some few calls. I got to take a break. Back in a moment. Joel, that's Joel. Y'all met Joel?
What up, Jay?
He black.
How you doing?
We're going to do the D-Live and treasure chest here in a minute, Joel. Okay. Let me just finish this. What I want to do is for you to tell the folks how to find your beer company, you know, to come there and drink as much beer as possible.
Yeah. So we
I'll go there.
you can follow us now on social at Crowns and Hops, ANDHOPS, on our Instagram, or you can go to our website, crownsandhops.com, and really just follow the journey. We're set to be open around fall 2020, and our brew pub will have food. It'll be a place you can bring, your kids, your families, have, beer and wine. It'll be a really great place for family.
Amazing.
And one of the things that I found out recently is that my great-great-grandmother was a brewer.
Oh, yeah?
And she had a business
It's in the blood.
Louisiana. It's in the blood.
It's in the blood.
But one of the things that, we know and we've realized is that craft beer is a neutralizer.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity for people to find out where they're closer than they are farther apart.
Absolutely.
And we're excited to
When
bring
I
that
first
to the
heard
world.
about your company, it reminded me of Alabama. And the South. I grew up in Alabama, as I said, but I've been to Texas a lot.
Yep.
And they have these beer places where they dance and drink beer, just have a good time, and people do come together and discuss issues
Yeah.
and all kind of things can happen there.
It's a neutralizer.
Yeah.
You can be sitting next to someone that you would never think you'd be sitting next to in a brew pub and find out you have so much more in common than you think you do, and that's really important, especially now.
And what is the website again?
It's Crown, CROWNSAND, Hops, HOPS, Crowns
cool.
and Hops.
And that's intended to remind the people that they're always deserving of something premium in their life.
Yeah,
Amazing.
absolutely.
Well, we're heard around the world by everybody and their mama. So
Amazing.
hope that you guys
They
can
did
visit.
amazing.
Amazing. Amazing. I gotta ask you this. This is a manhood hour. Every Wednesday, the last hour is manhood hour.
I'm a man.
And we are rebuilding the family by
Yeah.
rebuilding the man, right?
It's amazing.
So I want to know. First of all, you guys used to date.
We did used to.
How long did you date?
3 years.
3 years.
Really? And how is it that you're able to be friends after breaking up and
I
going to
mean-
business together and all that?
Do we look like we're friends?
Right. We
Yeah,
hate each
yeah,
other.
look happy.
When we built the business together, we built it on friendship, and I think we realized because again we started this business 6 years ago, and we realized that we were building the community first before we knew we can actually open a space, and so many people would come up to us, and some in tears, some just saying thank you for representing us in a way that no one does. Thank you for talking to us. Thank you for creating these safe spaces for us. And we realized once we broke up, what we were making was bigger than us. And we had to keep going. We had to do it for the community. We had to do it for the change that's really needed in our culture. And we just kept going.
Amazing. And so, Benny,
Tia.
Teo, this
Teo,
manhood
so
hour, man. You better
is-
get the name right.
I know, Teo, T-E-O.
Manhood. Teo. Yes.
So, is Benny controlling?
That's
You know what?
funny.
Benny is our CEO. I'm the head of brewing operations. And the irony is probably the first human being in history that brewed was probably a woman, which is funny.
Yeah.
So, how about while dating, was she controlling?
I wouldn't say controlling. I think one of the things that allowed us to come out of the relationship still as business partners
Right.
is we have a respect for each other's skill set. And, she literally is probably one of the more organized individuals I've ever met in my entire life. And
So, Benny, are you controlling?
No, I don't.
Did you control Teo?
she is.
No.
What? You are
What?
controlling.
Okay.
Are you kidding?
Okay. I'm controlling when it comes to the business. In a
Yes.
relationship, no, I was not controlling.
So you obeyed Teo?
Ooh. Ooh.
Obeyed. My God.
I don't know if I ever required you to
I don't
obey.
think he asked me to obey him.
Did you just naturally obey him?
No, I think the only reason we're able to have this business. No, seriously, the only way we're able to stay business partners after we broke up is because of the mutual respect we had for each other. So it wasn't an obey, submissive, dominant sort of situation. It was he respected my stance, my position, what I contributed, and I did the same for him.
I'm running out of time here, but I got to ask this.
Of course.
What is a man? I know what a male is, but what is a man?
A man is someone who has integrity, someone who can make decisions without allowing for the ancillary things in life that are not priorities to put a person in a position to not think about the future and not have foresight. So that starts with integrity. And I think if men have integrity with their families, with the young men, with the young women, with their wives, with their elders, I think that showcases the best attributes of a man.
What is a man, Beny?
A man is for me, a man is someone that respects his family, he respects his wife, he respects his community. He is a protector of the things that are great and the things that are good, and he stands proud and walks in that glory of being that strong individual for the community. Amazing.
Can we take a few calls before I let you guys go?
Absolutely.
Do you mind? Okay, let's go to Daisy out of
what up, Daisy?
Hey,
New
Daisy.
York.
Yay,
New York.
Okay.
Yeah. Daisy, welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to call. I just had a question. I asked this in all sincerity. I just wanted to know, what is the purpose of specifying that the business is Black-owned, or that the business is, created from, a black and brown community and all that? Like, is there a specific reason for specifying that?
Of course. Simply, like I mentioned before, it's about 8,000 breweries in the country right now. There'll be about 10,000 breweries by the end of 2021. If one demographic is only the demographic that continues to exist in craft beer, then we're going to start having businesses that close down. If the consumer base doesn't get more diverse, and or the industry itself doesn't get more diverse, then people won't see their reflection, people won't support, and people won't understand, hey, look, not only can I support this Black-owned business, but now that I even understand what craft beer is now, I can go to the next business that maybe isn't Black-owned and still celebrate the things.
When you say they won't see their reflection, what do you mean?
I mean, seeing other people, and hopefully I answer your question, Daisy, but seeing people that look like them. If anybody...
Is that necessary?
I think it
Right,
is.
that's what I was saying. I don't see why it's necessary.
Well, think about...
Why can't you just be a business and compete with all the other businesses without having to specify that, it's Black-owned? I just want to understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's another approach to look at it too, and I think, as Jesse was explaining, you grew up and you were taught to own your home, own your business, and it's leading by example. I think the fact that we're in the craft beer space, a space that traditionally does not include people of color, it's also an opportunity for people to just see that you can get into industries and businesses that you normally are not either welcomed or don't really know anything about. So it's also just sort of leading by example in a way, to say it is a Black-owned business in a craft beer industry that is traditionally only white. So now someone can look at this as example and say, wow, I can get into this business. I'm also accepted here. Think about it this way. If you walk into a brewery or any location and realize you're the only white person there, the only white woman, et cetera, over time, you might feel uncomfortable. You might not stay. Your experience might not be welcomed. And it isn't that anyone is excluding you or making you feel uncomfortable. It is often uncomfortable to be the only one.
But when a person is uncomfortable, that's an insecure person, and they need to deal with their insecurity. Because if I walked into an all-black place or an all-white place, it's not their fault that I feel insecure.
I don't know if it's a matter of insecurity. I think it's a matter of feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
I think it's
But we can't make people feel comfortable. Your parents are supposed to do that while you're growing up.
Well, you can make people feel comfortable. You can create spaces that
What
are
that mean, create spaces?
You could, like
Businesses.
a brewery or businesses or public places that really represent what the society looks like, which is not just white people. It's not just Black people. It's everyone. So leading with the fact that we're Black-owned doesn't take away from anything. It just shows that there are opportunities that we are able to take and able to grow in this space. It just doesn't exist. It's just something to say, opportunities are here for everyone. It's an inclusive conversation. That's all it is.
It seems like it's a bit more. It seems like it's a bit more exclusive when you make it about the race. You see what I'm saying?
Well, again,
Because if I was white and I heard you advertise Black and brown, right? I'm not going in there.
I don't know. There are a lot of white people that love hip hop.
Yeah,
Well, white people.
There's a lot. If you go to the average hip hop concert, you primarily see more white people than you do see black.
Really?
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Anything else, Daisy?
No, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Daisy.
Of
All
course.
right.
Thank you, Daisy.
But they don't call it black and brown in the hip hop world. They just call it bopping and grinding.
Bumping and grinding.
Oh, my goodness.
No, they.
Get off my porch.
Is that right? No,
I
they
believe that's
just.
you,
They just.
Jesse.
Tanika, I believe. Taniki is
How do you say your name?
out of Louisiana. Taniki, am I saying your name right?
Pianki, Jesse. What's wrong with you?
Tianki, okay. I'm listening to my producer. He said Taniki. Tianki.
No, but I kind of agree with the last caller on this business person. If you are directing something directly for blacks, and if you're going to open it in the hood, all I can say is good luck. Even LeBron James, when he opened up his Blaze Pizza in the St. Louis area, he put that establishment out in Maryland Heights, which is probably 95% white. Now, you're not preventing anyone from coming to your business. But, here's another thing that you got to consider, too. There's a lot of black conservatives today, and they are not just going to blindly patronize a business because it's black, because the actions of the owner, you may be contributing to highly liberal politicians who enacting policy that goes against that black conservative interest. They're not going to, they're not going to spend the money with you.
Well, one of the things that we also realized in beer culture specifically is that there is a reverence for German culture or Belgian culture, traditionally white cultures, if you will. But what about the American culture of beer? What about the American culture of creating ingredients and creating things that get lost because people are simply afraid to have a discussion about where our country has been? You have a whiskey, I think it's called Uncle Nearest whiskey, that essentially started, and I apologize for remembering the whiskey that they were affiliated with, but literally the legacy of Uncle Nearest was buried because people were simply afraid to discuss or even have a conversation about race. Our goal is not to exclude and to not make people feel like we're tearing something down. Rather, we're building a space that rather hasn't been there, and it needs to be there, frankly, for people to support the industry.
When we do events, real quick, when we do events, because again, we've been doing this for a while. It's
6 years.
It's never just black people. It's never just brown people. Our events are always a mix of the most diverse group of people you've ever seen having beer. And again, to my point earlier, people are having conversations with people that they would have never met otherwise. All we're doing is creating a space where everyone can feel comfortable. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of these spaces, everyone doesn't feel comfortable. And we don't think there's anything wrong with creating a space where everyone can feel comfortable.
D-Live, this is from D-Live. Brandon M. asked if you know of Garrett
Oliver.
Yes.
That's a homie.
He was the founder of Brooklyn Brewer.
Absolutely. Garrett's a
And
good friend.
he's black
He
and
is.
is one of the most successful craft beers.
He absolutely is. Yeah.
In the world.
In the world, yeah.
But he's
amazing.
not using black. He's not saying black and brown. I never heard of it. But he include everybody. He doesn't say black and brown.
He is one of the most well-renowned craft beer experts, and I think for him, I don't think it is a matter of black and brown, and that's fine. That's totally fine. But I think in the community, in the black and brown communities, he is looked at as a person of color in craft beer, and that does mean something.
It meant something to me.
It meant something to me when we met him to say, hey, you were one of the first. You were one of the first people to pave the way to introduce an opportunity for people of color in craft beer. And that is an important thing to have.
Let me just squeeze in one more call here.
Sure.
Before Jay is out of Chicago, Illinois. Jay, welcome to the show. Oh, God, I hung up on Jay.
No.
Accidentally.
Come back, Jay.
Oh, Jay, call back if you can before they leave. Jay, call me back, Jay. I'm sorry. One more time, tell the folks how they can get in contact with you, where you are, and all that good stuff.
Of course, you can find us more notably on Instagram at crownsandhops.com. That's S at the Crowns and S at the Hops. Or you could go to our site, www.crownsandhops.com. Spell out the and.
Yep.
One last thing from me. I don't
Hope not the last.
understand why you use the black and brown thing. I'm not getting it because Mexicans don't like black people. And in Mexico, black people are second class. Have you ever gone to Mexico? Black people are second class citizens. And in places like Compton, East LA, and all that, there's a war going on between the blacks and the Mexicans, even on Crenshaw Boulevard.
Isn't it time to change that?
Well, here's the thing. You have a Mexican home brewing club that we are honorary members of called the SoCal Cerveceros. That is probably one of the more amazing group of Mexican men and women that we've been able to work with and collaborate with. We love each other, and we share beer. We brew together,
absolutely, and
we share philosophies that are not just rooted in black and brown, but rooted in just good human beings taking good care of good human beings.
Absolutely,
and that's what we've been able to galvanize.
Mexicans don't even hire black people.
Yeah, hey, look.
I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah.
I rest my case. Jay is back. Let me tell you, Jay, really fast.
Let's go,
Okay,
Jay.
sure.
Okay. Jay, thank you for calling back. You're on the air with my guest. Go ahead.
Hey, what kind of beer y'all got?
We have 3 beers, flagship beers right now. We have a stout called Urban Anomaly, which is an American stout with smoked malt. We have a Pilsner called Beat Messenger. That is a true take on an Italian Pilsner that I love. Is nice and dry. And an IPA, which is a West Coast IPA called Elevated Cypher. Super traditional, super clean.
Y'all got like Steel Reserve or 45. That's all us black people like.
Oh, no, not today, man. We're elevating the game, hence Crowns and Hops.
45 after the show. Drink them up. Some Steel Reserve.
And look, I'm sure there will be a market for that always, but we're all about elevating the palate.
That's all we buy. All black people buy. We love malt liquor. That's all we get.
No, it's time to elevate the palate and expand the palate and bring in something a lot more premium.
You make sure and pour some out for the homies then, all right?
All right. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. Scott is out of Texas. Scott, thank you for calling. You're on the air.
Hey, Jesse, just had a quick question. I was curious about the double standard with the whites and the blacks businesses where, if we were to say this was a white brewery, there'd be a massive backlash, but blacks can say that and it's okay.
Very interesting point. Good point. You say?
Again, when there is no parity, when there is an issue, and for example, the Brewers Association, which is an association that governs all breweries in the United States, also saw that this was an issue, and it was an issue because there was not a level playing field of entry, and then 2, there just wasn't awareness. Again, when you do, like the previous caller just stated, the big beer industry, the malt liquor beer industry, they absolutely target the black and brown consumer to drink the worst of the possible products out there. But when you have that same concern about what big beer is doing, sometimes the conversation of black and brown and Latin and Asian even people is left out. So what we're doing is we're just ensuring that people understand that there is a product, there is a business, and there is a space for everyone when it hasn't been so obvious in the past.
And I think in regard to that question, we're not saying we are a business for only black and brown people. We have never said that. We've never represented that, and that's never been our message. We are saying we are a brewery that is owned by people of color, and that we are just going to create a space that has some elements of culture that has been absolutely missing from the beer industry.
But
so there's no inclusion.
You do see there's a double standard. White people can't say and do certain things where the black people and everybody else can do and say whatever they want.
But our
perception is reality sometimes. And I think, I don't know if and again, you are not an insecure man. We are clear about that. But there are other people in this country that either may be battling insecurity or dealing with the issues that they cannot face or speak up or say, I am uncomfortable, or this situation, I feel like I can't progress in. And what we do in terms of saying I am a black-owned business is saying that, look, there is space for everyone here. When it hasn't been obviously put out and or positioned that way in the past.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you all so much. That was fun, huh?
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you so much.
That was so much fun. Amazing.
And one of the things that we always pride ourselves in is in having the uncomfortable conversation.
I love that.
That's the only way we're going to come to a solution.
Yeah.
We don't plan on being right all the time, but we are grateful that you are allowing us to have this conversation with you and your guests.
Are you surprised that the blacks hire the Mexicans, but the Mexicans won't hire the blacks?
Again, I don't know about that.
Look around you. It's everywhere.
I'm not sure about that
No,
statement.
it's Mamma Mia, hola. Si, senor. No blacks.
Hey.
I never,
Look,
never saw that.
we will be hiring blacks, Mexicans, whites, and everyone else when we open a brewery.
Absolutely.
Right on. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you so
very
much.
much.
All right. D-Live and Super Chats.
Super chats.
Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.